New York City, the late 1980s and early 1990s. While most of America slept, a revolution was happening in the underground nightlife scene of Manhattan. They wore outrageous costumes, threw illegal parties in unexpected places, and challenged every social norm they could find. They called themselves the Club Kids, and their story would end in one of the most shocking murders in New York history. This is the story of Party Monster, a true tale of creativity, excess, addiction, and ultimately murder. It's the story of Michael Alig, James St. James, and a young man named Angel Melendez whose life was cut tragically short. What you're about to hear is based on court records, journalistic accounts, interviews, and the memoir by James St. James. This is Party Monster, the shockumentary. To understand what happened, we need to go back to the beginning, back to when the Club Kids were just a group of misfits looking for a place to belong. The Club Kids weren't just partygoers. They were performance artists, fashion rebels, and cultural provocators. In an era before social media, before influencers, before Instagram, they understood something fundamental about attention, spectacle, and personal branding. Michael Alig arrived in New York City from South Bend, Indiana in 1984. He was young, ambitious, and desperate to escape his small-town life. He had no money, no connections, just raw charisma and an instinct for spectacle. He started small, throwing parties, networking, making connections. He befriended James St. James, who would later write the memoir that immortalized this entire saga. Together with other young creatives, they began building something extraordinary. The Club Kids didn't wait for permission. They created what they called outlaw parties, spontaneous events in unexpected locations. They'd take over a McDonald's, turning it into a runway. They'd throw parties on subway cars, in Times Square, at Burger King. Anywhere mundane could become magical. Their costumes were extreme. Think avant-garde fashion meets drag meets punk meets pure imagination. Some wore towering wigs. Others painted their entire bodies. Some created sculptural outfits that defied description. Gender was fluid. Rules didn't exist. Every night was performance art. And incredibly, they got paid for this. Club owners like Peter Gatian, who owned legendary venues like the Limelight, the Tunnel, and the Palladium, hired Club Kids as promoters. Their job was simple: be fabulous, draw crowds, create buzz. And they were very, very good at it. The media loved them. They appeared on Geraldo, Joan Rivers, Phil Donahue. They were in magazines, newspapers, documentaries. Michael Alig especially had a gift for self-promotion. He understood that in the media age, being outrageous was a commodity. By the early 1990s, the Club Kids were at their peak. They were the kings and queens of Manhattan nightlife. Thousands of people came to their parties. They influenced fashion, music, and youth culture. They created a space where outcasts, queer people, artists, and freaks could be celebrated instead of marginalized. It was a beautiful, chaotic, creative explosion. But like all explosions, it would eventually consume itself. Every story of excess has a turning point. For the Club Kids, that turning point was drugs. In the beginning, drugs were recreational. Ecstasy for dancing, marijuana for relaxing, cocaine for energy. The club scene and drugs have always gone hand in hand. But for Michael Alig and many others, it escalated far beyond party favors. Special K, ketamine, became Michael's drug of choice. It's a dissociative anesthetic, something that separates your mind from your body, from reality. Combined with heroin, alcohol, and whatever else was available, Michael spiraled into serious addiction. His boyfriend at the time, a club kid known as Gitsy, was also deep in addiction. Those who knew Michael during this period describe a dramatic transformation. The creative genius became paranoid, erratic, sometimes violent. The parties continued, But the magic was fading. The club scene itself was changing. Mayor Rudy Giuliani was waging his quality of life campaign, cracking down on nightlife. The AIDS crisis was devastating the community. The creative energy that fueled the movement was being replaced by desperation and drug dependency. And then there was the money problem, because drugs weren't just recreational anymore. They were expensive necessities. Michael owed money to dealers, a lot of money, particularly to one dealer who was part of the inner circle. His name was Melendez, though everyone knew him as Angel. He was a young man from Colombia who had come to America with dreams of becoming an actor. Instead, he found himself in the club scene, wearing distinctive feathered wings and dealing drugs to support himself. Angel and Michael had been friends, but by early 1996, Angel was demanding payment for drugs Michael had taken on credit. According to accounts, Michael owed him around $10,000, a significant sum, especially for a drug dealer who needed to pay his own suppliers. Michael avoided Angel. He made promises he didn't keep. The tension built. What I'm about to describe is based on the confession given by Robert Freeze Riggs and Michael Alig's own accounts. It's disturbing, but it's necessary to understand what happened. On the evening of March 17, 1996, Angel Melendez went to Michael Alig's apartment at Riverbank West on the Upper West Side. He wanted his money. According to the confessions, an argument erupted. Angel grabbed Michael, shook him, slammed him against the wall. Michael's roommate, Robert Freeze Riggs, grabbed a hammer. He struck Angel 3 times in the head. Michael then grabbed a pillow and held it over Angel's face until he stopped moving. Angel Melendez was dead. What happened next is where this story becomes even more horrific. Instead of calling the police, instead of seeking help, Michael and Freeze panicked. They put Angel's body in the bathtub and covered it with ice, buying themselves time to figure out what to do. But both men were heavily intoxicated. Michael was high on heroin and ketamine. Their judgment was completely impaired. For several days, Angel's body remained in the bathtub while Michael and Freeze used drugs and tried to decide their next move. As the body began to decompose, they realized they had to dispose of it. Michael, in a drug-induced haze, dismembered Angel's body. He cut off the legs with a kitchen knife. They placed the body parts in garbage bags and a cardboard box. Then they carried these bags and boxes through the lobby of their apartment building, past security guards and doormen. They loaded them into a taxi. At a pier on the Hudson River, they threw everything into the water. But there was a problem. The box containing Angel's torso was lined with cork, a buoyancy aid. Instead of sinking, it floated. Michael and Freeze watched as the box drifted down the river. Later, Michael would claim he remembered thinking, "Angels float," as if the whole horrific act was some kind of poetic performance. It wasn't poetry. It was murder. It was the brutal killing of a 24-year-old man who had come to America with dreams, who had a family that loved him, who deserved so much better than to be thrown away like garbage. Here's where the story takes a bizarre turn, because Michael Alig, the man who had just committed murder, started telling people about it. At parties, in clubs, to friends, Michael would casually mention that he'd killed Angel. Most people thought he was joking. Michael was known for outrageous stories, for pushing boundaries, for saying shocking things just to get attention. Surely this was just another one of his performances. But some people took it seriously. They went to journalist Michael Musto at the Village Voice. Musto wrote a blind item in his column about a club kid who owed money to a drug dealer and the dealer who suddenly disappeared. He didn't name names, but in the tight-knit club community, everyone knew who he was talking about. Meanwhile, Angel's family was desperate. His brother Johnny went to the police to report him missing. But Angel was a Colombian immigrant and a drug dealer. The NYPD wasn't particularly interested in investigating. Johnny had to go to the media, create pressure, force the police to pay attention. Then, in April 1996, about a month after the murder, children playing on Oakwood Beach in Staten Island found something horrifying. A cardboard box had washed ashore. Inside was a legless torso. The police began investigating, but they faced challenges. The body was decomposed. Identification would take months. And there was another complication. The DEA was investigating club owner Peter Gatian for drug trafficking and wanted Michael Alig as a witness. This created jurisdictional tensions that slowed the murder investigation. Michael, realizing the net was closing, fled to New Jersey with his boyfriend. He thought maybe he could hide, maybe it would blow over. But by November 1996, 7 months after Angel's disappearance, the medical examiner positively identified the body through dental records. It was Angel Melendez. On December 1st, 1996, police found Michael Alig in a motel in Toms River, New Jersey. They arrested him for the murder of Angel Melendez. Freeze, facing the reality of what they'd done, confessed immediately, giving police a detailed account of that night. On October 1st, 1997, both Michael Alig and Robert Freeze Riggs pleaded guilty to first-degree manslaughter. They were each sentenced to 10 to 20 years in prison. For Angel's family, it felt inadequate. 10 to 20 years for a life taken, a body dismembered, a person discarded like trash? The Club Kid era ended that night in March 1996. Everything after was just the death throes of a movement that had already consumed itself. Giuliani's crackdown closed the clubs. The scene scattered. People got sober, got therapy, moved on with their lives, or didn't. James St. James, Michael's close friend, wrote the memoir Disco Bloodbath, later retitled Party Monster, as a way to process what had happened. How could he have loved and admired someone capable of murder? How had they all enabled Michael's addiction and destructive behavior? How had a movement built on creativity and acceptance ended in such tragedy? The book was adapted into a documentary in 1998 and a feature film in 2003 starring Macaulay Culkin as Michael Alig. The story became famous, but in that fame, Angel Melendez often got lost. He became a footnote, a victim whose name was less remembered than his killers. Michael Alig served 17 years in prison. He was released on parole in May 2014. His life after prison was troubled. He struggled with addiction, tried to recreate his former glory, gave interviews, appeared in documentaries. Some saw him as a cautionary tale. Others saw him as someone who'd never truly taken responsibility for what he'd done. On December 24, 2020, Christmas Eve, Michael Alig died of a drug overdose in his Manhattan apartment. He was 54 years old. He never fully escaped the demons that had driven him to kill Angel Melendez 24 years earlier. Robert Freeze Riggs was released on parole in 2010 and has largely stayed out of the public eye. So what do we take from the story of Party Monster? What lessons can we learn from this tragedy? First, it's a cautionary tale about addiction. Michael Alig didn't wake up one day and decide to become a murderer. It was a gradual descent fueled by drugs, enabled by a culture that celebrated excess and looked away from obvious warning signs. Addiction doesn't just hurt the addict, it destroys everyone in its orbit. Second, it's a story about how we celebrate self-destruction. The media loved the Club Kids when they were outrageous and shocking. The same media that platformed them early on made Michael Alig famous again after he murdered someone. We need to ask ourselves what we're glorifying and why. Third, and most importantly, we need to remember Angel Melendez, not as a plot point in Michael Alig's story, but as a real person. He was 24 years old when he died. He came from Colombia with his family seeking opportunity. He had dreams of acting, of making movies. His brother loved him. His family mourned him. He deserved better than he got in life and in death. The Club Kids represented something genuinely revolutionary, a space where marginalized people could be themselves, where creativity and weirdness were celebrated, where the outcasts became the in crowd. But they also represented the dangers of living without limits, of believing that fame and fabulousness could insulate them from consequences, of choosing spectacle over substance. That part of their legacy deserves scrutiny. Angel Melendez was murdered. He was killed by people he considered friends. His body was dismembered and thrown away. His death ended the Club Kid era and shattered the illusion that the party would never end. This is the true story of Party Monster, a story of creativity and murder, of fame and tragedy, of a scene that burned bright and burned out, leaving casualties in its wake. Remember Angel Melendez. Remember that behind every shocking headline, every sensational story, every party monster, there are real victims with real families who deserve justice and remembrance. Thank you for watching.